Welcome to Norse Code, episode 63 of the number one podcast for your Minnesota Vikings. I am your host, Don Lemon.
Demon.
And I am here with, among other things, the editor-in-chief of Vikings Territory, and also probably not a very satisfied sports gambler on this Tuesday evening, Arif Hassan. How are you, Arif?
I'm all right. Actually, so regarding sports gambling, I obviously am upset, but mostly, I mean, I made $1. I'm in the black.
Yay!
On the Super Bowl. So, well, I mean, part of it helps that I didn't actually take any of the prop bets we suggested people take, so that was good.
That's funny. We actually did decently on the non-player props. It was really only on our narrative of the game and all of the associated bets that went with it where we went wrong.
Wait, so how do we do on the non-player props? Because we were wrong in the national anthem, right? Oh, we didn't do that one.
Well, we didn't do the will she forget a word, but we lost on the national anthem. She was about 2 minutes and 5 seconds.
Yeah, right.
And we were under 2 minutes and 1, which it was interesting. There was some scuttlebutt going around Twitter, and sportsbook.ag actually stopped taking action on the over.
Right.
With the suspicion of insider information that she was gonna take it long.
Yeah, there's a ton of action right before, or like 2 hours before the Super Bowl on the over. So sportsbook.ag shut it down.
But yeah, no, we hit on Bill Belichick and Pete Carroll and Katy Perry opening with Roar, and the under on mentions of Deflate and Robert Kraft being shown more than Paul Allen.
That Robert Kraft one wasn't the Robert Kraft one the Anthony Kiedis bet. That was our stone cold lock of the century of the week.
It seemed that way, but then when the game got close at the end and they showed a reaction shot from Paul Allen, it was just like, well, are they going to go back and forth? Are they going to do, like, depending on how the game goes, they could show 2 in a row, and then it turned out they showed Kraft like 3 in a row, and that was the end of that.
And then he just ran away with it.
Yeah, I tell you what, like, so I've been pretty much on like sports television embargo since the Super Bowl. Like, I couldn't take it, you know. I went and saw the game with like one of my good friends and a bunch of Pats fans, which in retrospect, which was fine up until the very end of the game when it became the worst decision I've ever made.
Yeah, I can imagine. Because if the Seahawks win, he's just like quiet and desolate and sad, right?
Then, you know, Rob and I get to high five each other and I get to, you know, count my money.
Break in all the money that we got.
Yeah, exactly. I get to count our Your Majesties, and you know, life goes on. You know, happily. We get to feel smart about football, but instead, the opposite thing happens, and this is just like, I mean, we were all there. I mean, not there, but we all saw it.
Yeah.
And it's funny because, I mean, this was kind of the culmination of a really difficult year for the NFL, just as a league. I mean, PR-wise, total disaster. There were a lot of very catty and cantankerous blog posts kind of circulating the internet in the days leading up to the Super Bowl about, you know, what a broken institution the NFL is and how it doesn't care about CTE and this and that and the other thing, and how the owners are, you know, adversarial towards both the fans and the players and the TV networks, and, you know, $4 million for 30 seconds of TV time, blah, 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 blah. For all of that, the Patriots-Seahawks game that we watched on Sunday was the most exciting football game of the year, possibly one of the most exciting football games I have ever watched, and possibly the most exciting ending that will ever happen in any football game ever.
Well, yeah, in part because it is the Super Bowl. So you're basically saying it's the most exciting thing that'll ever happen in any Super Bowl ever, too, right?
I mean, yes.
But that's all it means. Like, all you have to do is include Super Bowls. Because if it happens in a conference championship game, if something more exciting happens in like a regular season game, like if Odell Beckham's catch happens again next season, at the end of the game to win a game, I mean, it's not as exciting.
People would care a lot less if you were watching like a 2 5-10 teams playing in the last game of the season, and then there's a Jermaine Kearse style catch followed up by a game-ending interception at the 1 yard line.
Right, exactly.
You know, it's still exciting. It's not, you know, as exciting. I would argue that the unlikelihood of that thing happening again, especially in a playoff situation, would make it as exciting if it were to happen in an NFC or AFC championship game. But chances are we're never going to see anything like that again. That was fucking nuts.
Oh yeah.
Like the 1/3 of we went and watched at a neighborhood bar, and the 1/3 of the bar that was cheering for the Seahawks, I mean, they all looked like they had been shot with a cannonball, like Homer Simpson style in the chest.
Yeah. I mean, well, okay, so I saw a couple of reaction videos because those hit YouTube and you can't not click. But yes, there's live reaction to the whole thing, and a couple of people were having Richard Sherman's reaction, which that's an amazing gift for the future. But it's just weird because some people thought that Lockett caught the ball at least in the first millisecond, right? And I can sympathize with that because I had no idea what was going on when it happened until Butler actually hit the ground, and you're like, well, he clearly has the ball. He's the only one huddled, right? But for a millisecond, you can see on their faces half of them are clapping, the other half are oh my god, this is the worst thing to ever happen in my life. Which who knows, maybe that's true. But
it's not good.
Yeah, but then it's just silence. Some people are turning around and sad, and then irresponsibly Al Michaels says there's a flag, and so some people turn around and go flag, there's a flag. Oh, it's the most depressing thing. It's yeah, there's a flag. No, it doesn't matter. I'm sorry.
So anyway, so I've been on the sports television embargo for the last couple of days, but have we seen anything about the fight that broke out as time was expiring?
Not much. I got old people Twitter reactions in my feed. In terms of they didn't talk about it that much. They talked about why would you throw it? That's the only thing they talked about, the decision to throw the ball. Meh.
Well, it just, and I heard a variety of reactions from this is the end of the NFL to
wait,
these people are all
really?
Yeah. To these people are all thugs. This is what we should expect. I mean, I think on the one hand, it's kind of emblematic of the NFL as a league that would like to present an image of itself that is not the reality of the game or its players. For example, they were more than happy to instantly cut away when Julian Edelman got his concussion, or when Doug Baldwin, I guess,
shit of football,
laid an egg. Was that?
Yeah, I think that's the term.
How is that a touchdown dance anyway?
Well, he said it was directed at a specific individual, but he wouldn't say who.
Yeah, let's get Doug Baldwin to do an AMA in about 11 months, and maybe he'll let it slip. But what a weird. Well, that now I don't even know.
The hope is that it was for Brandon Browner, but he said it wasn't.
And I thought it was kind of funny that the NBC couldn't really cut away from the fight because it was happening all over the line, and the football game wasn't over. The only option that NBC really had if they didn't want to show the fight was to completely cut away from the football field while the clock was still running.
Yeah, it's great. I'm glad the fight was so big. And Gronk threw a couple of haymakers.
You talk about, players playing angry. You talk about teams playing angry. Of course, Gronk is going to be in there. If he could have ripped his shirt off, he would have.
Oh, yeah, easily. I bet he regrets not doing it.
If only he had more time.
Yeah, he got pushed through a punch at someone who didn't push him, which is pretty classic in fights like this. And then he brought someone to the ground. It was. I feel bad for whoever. I don't care if you were a 320-pound lineman. I feel bad if you're fighting Gronk.
Yeah, because I mean, he's got a screw loose. His brain doesn't work like ours.
Yeah, so he'll just try to end things.
I don't think it's a huge deal for the league or whatever that people fight at the end of the Super Bowl. Dude, I'd be pissed off too. If I'm on the Seahawks, that was horseshit.
Oh yeah.
And they were angry to begin with. They came out of the tunnel angry when the game started.
Yeah, they manufactured some serious anger to get into the game, and then
to have that happen.
Oh god.
Just the burning fury cannot be matched. So I don't blame them. I don't think it makes them thugs.
And remember this too. It wasn't the interception was not the previous play. It was the encroachment penalty. What's going to frustrate you even more than that, right?
Right?
Thing is, so Brady can't kneel in the end zone to run out the clock because it's a safety, and then they have to punt the ball. And so it was like this really weird moment. So Belichick told them to encroach, and I remember I was tweeting about this live. I was like, uh, Belichick faked a center head bob. He told the center to fake the head bob so that he could call an encroachment penalty, which is a false start, by the way. That's an illegal move by the center. But Belichick had said this earlier, like in a sound effects, like the NFL releases sound effects. He had said like last year, this video was released. He had said like the 3 minute mark of the video or the 350 mark or something like that. You should always watch out for aggressive hard calls at the goal line because the encroachment penalty is the freest 5 yards you'll ever get because a false start moves the ball a couple of inches back. But an encroachment penalty moves it 5 yards forward. So that's exactly what he did, right? So if you're the Seahawks, you actually had an opportunity because the Patriots were in the red zone. They can't kneel there. They have to like dive underneath the pile at the very least, right? And so you have an opportunity to make a play, albeit not a very good opportunity, right? But you have an opportunity to make a play, and then you draw the encroachment penalty, and then the Patriots are 5 yards out. You have no chance. Of course, you're going to fight.
Of course, you're going to fight. Halftime show was really good. Love Missy Elliott.
Oh, Missy Elliott rocked the halftime show. That was great.
She totally stole the show. I don't care about the shark thing.
But Left Shark is hilarious.
Left Shark is fine. I did not. I guess I kind of like knew it, but I didn't know that Katy Perry apparently cannot dance.
Really, I didn't.
Well, okay, look how much Missy. I mean, I know it was only for like one song, but Missy Elliott was like rocking it out there. She was in front of the whole dance team or whatever. Katy Perry spent probably a good 3/4 of her like time on stage being transported in on that lion and then carried around on the More You Know star.
That was a pretty great moment, though.
It was more than a moment. It was all of firework.
She opened on the star, or she got onto the star on firework, and then she like started another song while on the star.
And I mean, the only reason I can assume they did that is because she can't really shake it. And she's kind of up there,
I've never seen her dance in a video, so she seems like the kind of person who like at concerts will stand on stage and then like bounce their knees, right?
Tap their toe, maybe like move their heels a little bit in like something approximating a two-step.
Exactly. Try to like watch old like Tom Petty videos and imitate that.
So I have a theory about the commercials, and I think it's going to become truer as years go on.
Either like the ones that made you want to kill yourself?
No, just commercials in general.
You have a theory about commercials in general. All right.
And this applies to the Super Bowl because what it ended up being like $4.5 million for a 30-second ad on the Super Bowl or something.
Yeah, something like that. 4 million.
So we're at a point in the zeitgeist or whatever where people in their mid-20s, people starting to graduate college, have grown up watching YouTube and just ignoring the thousands and thousands and thousands of autoplay ads that you see on the internet and on YouTube every day, whether it's through a plugin like Flash Control or just letting the ad play as you scroll past it or whatever. People don't really watch ads with the same fervency that they used to.
Sure.
And I think the Super Bowl ad as a method of actual advertising is on its way out. I mean, I know that the price for the ad will probably not change much, given that television networks still pay exorbitant amounts of money to broadcast football games, and the Super Bowl in particular, and they got to recoup that money somehow. And the price of a Super Bowl ad is a function of how much the Super Bowl costs to broadcast. I get that, but I just think that more and more companies are going to start seeing that it's just not worth their time. No pun intended.
You're off.
Yeah, I know. To invest that much in a Super Bowl ad, with maybe a couple of exceptions. Squarespace, the website creator that I've used in the past, bought 2 minutes of airtime on the Super Bowl this year, like $17 million worth of airtime.
Mm-hmm.
They actually had a pretty cool ad. I liked the Dreaming with Jeff thing. That's a cool idea.
That was
I
so weird. And I went to the website, so that worked out.
Yeah, there you go. Along with what were there? 40 million people watching the Super Bowl. You and let's say one out of every 10 people went to that site at that moment. 4 million hits, and the site didn't crash. That is some real high quality advertising for Squarespace, I guess. Anyway, Super Bowl commercials. Other than just the fact that commercials themselves are boring and just a dying breed in general, were there any that particularly stuck with you, appealed to you?
Stuck with me. The nationwide ad appealed to me. I don't know. The McDonald's ad was like a little depressing, even though it was like supposed to be super uplifting.
That McDonald's ad. If it's a good thing I don't go to McDonald's because
Right? I was like, no,
I
just let me pay $7.84. Right?
yeah
Like,
right. Just shut up and give me my cheeseburgers, all right? And just give me fresh fries. I'm not going to call my parents, but I want fresh fries. Can we do that?
can I just tell this person like behind me in line that I love them? Does that count? Great.
What if I say I love me?
Is that not just as important? McDonald's.
I would love you if you hurried up with those fresh fries. I'm just going to leave the cynicism of the McDonald's ad alone. I enjoyed the Brady Bunch ad with all the little guest spots
Oh,
in
with
it.
like Steve Buscemi as like Jan.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
that was pretty good.
I liked the Breaking Bad pharmacy ad. It's always good
That
to
one
see you
was
walk
good.
away.
Yeah.
That's clever. I thought like the one where the TV winked out at the beginning of the ad, like quote unquote winked out.
Oh, that didn't trick me at all. Everyone was way too gullible.
And see, I thought that one would have been more fun to watch if I was like at somebody's house watching the Super Bowl and it was like one room like full of people all kind of focused on the television, because then you might get a good like but I was in a bar, people were drinking, everybody's looking in all directions, people are like getting up to use the restroom or go buy a shot or whatever, like nobody paid attention. It didn't trick anyone. At least not where I was watching.
Yeah, I mean, didn't trick me. It tricked a bunch of people on Twitter. I was like, man,
Rubes.
oops. I was like, they got to play at least two more commercials, and they played exactly two more commercials after that. So the Super Bowl is not going to start at 6:29. They said kickoff was at 6:30, which means it's at 6:34. Just you wait, and it was.
And you were correct. That would be a good prop for next year. What is the over under on minutes
Actual
spread
kickoff
from
time.
actual kickoff? Well, I guess we should talk about the actual game, given that we have billed it as one of the most exciting football games ever to happen, past and future, and then digress to talk about a bunch of other stupid bull crap.
All right, so let's talk about everything but the final play, and then we can talk about the final play.
Well, that would be convenient because that one came at the end.
I mean, yes, a chronological recap would do that, but I don't think that's kind of how most recaps work. So I can't remember anything besides the final play. What can you remember?
Well, I feel dumb for making fun of Shane Vereen.
Did I make fun of Shane Vereen?
Well, no, we only quote unquote made fun of him in the sense that we mentioned his name in passing as basically just as a swipe at Josh McDaniels' play calling.
Oh, yeah.
We were arguing that they would run him up the middle, and that would be just a waste of his many talents. Turns out they did literally everything but that, and Vereen had what, like 16 catches?
11 catches on 12 targets.
11 catches on 12 targets. Yes. Brady was stupidly accurate aside from the 2 picks. And
well, okay, no, hold on about that. I want to talk about this. So, okay. I don't think Brady's performance was all that great. I don't think it was bad by any means. I don't think it was bad. But I think a lot of people are talking about how he had a spectacular performance in the Super Bowl. And I think that's kind of just a ridiculous statement given what he was asked to do, which is not an indictment of him, right? I just think that he didn't do anything particularly special in that specific game. Now, since week 4, all the way up until like the divisional game or the conference championship game, he's been stellar. I don't think there's any question about that. And that my arguments that Brady was on the decline are obviously not applicable to this year. I was definitely wrong about that. But in this specific game, he wasn't asked to do that much. So he had the lowest average depth of target that I have seen in a non-Vikings game in a long time. And admittedly, I haven't watched the Chiefs. I looked this up.
But that was an obvious strategic decision.
No, right? Yeah, no, it's not taking it away from Brady, except if you put Brady on a pedestal. I think it's a super smart strategy. I think it was really smart coaching. I thought it was a really good use of the player talents that you have. I think it's a really good way to obviate the Seahawks pass rush. I think it's a really smart, strategic, and contextual decision by Josh McDaniels. But I don't think that makes Brady's job any more difficult than Alex Smith's on a typical day, which is not to say that Brady performed as well as Alex Smith does on a typical day. But it is to say that Brady was given Alex Smith level of responsibilities, and the only quarterback that played this year that had a similar average depth of target was Alex Smith. So let's put that out there. I'm not just pulling something out of nowhere. He did it better than Alex Smith, but there are games where Christian Ponder did a better job of Alex Smith at doing what Alex Smith does too. And I don't think it is an indication of Brady's talent how he played during the Super Bowl, even though it's clear that he has talent, right? And I think it was a smart strategy, and I think that even though the strategy tends to obviate some of the better qualities that you have in your quarterback, it's a good way to get rid of the problems of the matchup. But I don't think that Brady had a particularly good game. I mean, over 50%, something like only 41% of the yards that were gained in the air were air yards, were yards before the run of the receiver, which that's not a useful stat with that context, but it would rank second to last out of all NFL quarterbacks, basically right next to Alex Smith, who would be last. So the receivers did a lot of work, and he didn't throw them open in a way that you would typically credit a quarterback for generating yak. I mean, he threw a bunch of screens from behind the line of scrimmage. He threw a bunch of hitches and comebacks, which are not typically routes that you have the ability to create additional yards for as a quarterback. I mean, there are ways that you can do it. But for the most part, the way the Patriots generated offense intelligently was to reduce the burden of Brady throwing against those cornerbacks. And I don't think he had a particularly good game. And he was pretty good in the red zone, aside from the pick that he threw that made no sense.
Well, the two picks he threw were...
One was in the red zone, one was not, so...
yeah, that's true, but both of them had the Pats fans surrounding me with their heads in their hands, wondering...
they were such bad picks.
Why God did this happen? They were pretty obviously, bad.
Yeah.
I still think that if you were playing... Like, if every NFL team played against the Seattle Seahawks 16 games every season, then you'd see a distribution of passes that would much more resemble, an Alex Smith or Super Bowl Tom Brady distribution than, the normal one that takes into account things such as not every team has the best pass rush in the NFL.
Right. I think you would, but I think it's a result of the Super Bowl Brady game. Like, I think if you get rid of this Super Bowl game and you hold this trial, I think a lot more teams will, instead of throwing a bunch of screen passes, will attempt to test the middle of the field between Cam Chancellor and Earl Thomas, and they will attempt to test the slot cornerback, and they will attempt to test Byron Maxwell. I think that's the typical game plan. I don't think it means a lot more screens than usual for people who generally play the Seahawks. And in this case, yeah, they did test the slot receiver, especially after Jeremy Lane got injured, and they did test Byron Maxwell a lot. But it was very screen dependent. The way they tested them was to throw them underneath, not throw at them. And when Brady threw at them, it was off. His deep ball accuracy was abysmal. His intermediate accuracy wasn't very good. He didn't have a very good game.
That's true. And when you consider the nature of the two picks, it's not like he was, trying to make a shoestring play and it just went south on him. They were just, bad throws that were easily picked off. I mean, I'm hesitant to just leap out and agree with you because, I hate Tom Brady and I hate the Patriots so much. And I want to restrain that homerism and not just immediately agree with you. But yeah, all right.
Yeah, I'm going to take a quick look at the pass distribution. So he had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 passes aimed past the 20-yard line. 2 of them were completed. 1 of them was an interception. Then he had 8 passes between the 10 and 19-yard line. 5 of them were completed. 1 of them was an interception. Get what I'm getting at?
What, that Seattle's offensive game was like the mirror image of that?
Sure. I mean, like, my point isn't that, the Seahawks were better that day or whatever. I don't know who was better that day. It was a pretty close game. I mean, the Seahawks were actually a little bit better that day. But the point wasn't that Russell Wilson played a better game than Tom Brady, though he did. The point was that people who are saying Brady put together this stellar Super Bowl performance are wrong.
LeGarrette Blount had 14 rushing attempts in the entire game. Brady managed to lead his team from a 10-point deficit in the second half, where the Patriots are not accustomed to playing from, and do it with basically no support from his run game or from his offensive line.
No one leads a comeback drive from behind with very little time left with support from the running game. That's switch.
I suppose he wouldn't be leading it if he was being set up properly by the run.
I mean, if you take a look at those, and I mean, again, he didn't have a bad game. I'm just saying he did not have a particularly noteworthy game. Even if you compare it to an average quarterback, but especially if you compare it to Tom Brady, who has had, if I recall correctly, some pretty stellar games in his career. But if you compare it to just like other quarterbacks, even against the Seahawks, I mean, his net yards per attempt were relatively high. I mean, they were still lower than league average, but you're playing the Seahawks, so against the Seahawks it was probably higher than opposing passers against the Seahawks. But when you think about like sort of what the credit was in terms of the net yards per attempt and stuff like that, there's still even in those drives, there's still like a lot of receivers doing a little bit more work than they're traditionally used to. I mean, like you think about this this first touchdown drive in the fourth quarter. You've got a couple of short passes, a short pass to Brandon LaFell for 4 yards. You've got a short pass to Shane Vereen for 2 yards. You've got a short pass to Julian Edelman that turns into 21 yards because yards after the catch. There's one deep ball to Julian Edelman, 21 yards. That's really good. But the key play was a short pass to Shane Vereen, left behind the line of scrimmage. He ends up getting 9 yards, and then Earl Thomas gets a penalty for unnecessary roughness, another 15 yards. There's only one pass where Tom Brady threw it over 16 yards in that first drive. It was actually there's 2 passes. One was incomplete. One was a very good pass in that first drive. And then you take a look at the second drive. It's in the playbook. Tom Brady pass short middle. Tom Brady pass short left. Tom Brady pass short left. Tom Brady pass short right. 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 Shane Vereen up the middle for 7 yards. Tom Brady pass short left. Those drives are like, it's great that you have consistent accuracy from this guy. That's true. But those drives include a lot of receiver yards after the catch that Tom Brady is not a part of. And so a lot of these passes are behind the line of scrimmage. And passes that are behind the line of scrimmage do not carry a particular high degree of difficulty. Passes that are 1 to 5 yards from the line of scrimmage are more difficult. That's true. But they do not contain a particularly high degree of difficulty, given especially the look that the Seahawks gave them. I'm not going to say Tom Brady didn't execute well, and I'm not going to say that if you put an average quarterback in the same situation that they win the game. But I do think that if you put an average quarterback in the same situation, their performance does not look all that dissimilar.
So I'm glad you mentioned the looks the Seahawks were giving. Do you think that this particular like offensive strategy, or maybe the proliferation of Tom Brady pass short right, was kind of a response to the stuff you talked about in our pregame show, where Seattle does like to show up in cover 3 or cover 2 spy, or cover 2 that looks like cover 3? Like, was this do you think like if this was partly a way to make it easier on poor Tom Brady to figure out, are they in zone? Are they in part zone, part man? Like, do I even have to worry about it?
I mean, I don't think it was made to simplify Tom Brady's reads, because Seattle just has a very simple defense to read. But yeah, the corners bail to do deep zone coverage, and then you've got your linebackers in the flats, and they simply just they ran really smart slant flat concepts to clear out linebackers. They ran pretty smart smash concepts to put stress on the corner linebacker seam. But it wasn't to simplify the reads. It was just, hey, if you throw it really quickly in the flat to a receiver that's uncovered by the cornerback, so just stack your receivers on the outside, then you've got a lot of space. You just got to break a tackle. Shane Vereen, really good at breaking tackles. Edelman, pretty good at breaking tackles. That's all you need. Which, I mean, obviously that sounds like really simple when the Seahawks defense has been spectacular, and so you can't just say that's all you need. But in this case, they had the personnel to take advantage of that kind of strategy. I think in the future, the Seahawks are probably going to respect the deep ball less in a similar situation, and play tighter to coverage most of the time. There is this problem, which is that Byron Maxwell, when he did play tight, wasn't able to plant against comeback routes well enough. And so Julian Edelman did get a couple of really good catches in Byron Maxwell's direction because Byron Maxwell fell down because he couldn't keep up with Edelman. So it's not just as if they only did screen passes. They took advantage of some of the weaknesses with the personnel as it pertains to their scheme. Because they do have to play a little bit of tight coverage, and unless you have a fluid cornerback, which Seattle is not known for drafting, then it creates problems. I mean, Thurl Simon was never a fluid cornerback when he was drafted. He's still not. Byron Maxwell, same thing. Richard Sherman, that was a knock on him, but it wasn't as bad as it was for like Brandon Browner when he was playing for the Seahawks. So yeah, that's just that happens, I guess. And sometimes you're not going to win those because your receiver's not good enough to disguise the route before planting, or you're playing against Richard Sherman or whatever. I mean, Richard Sherman was only targeted twice. It was at the beginning of the game. He was targeted 3 times. So at the beginning of the game, and he was never tested more than 5 yards downfield. So it's not like as if the scheme has this weakness so much as the players operating the scheme with their weaknesses, which, remember, these players are chosen for the scheme. And so their strengths match the scheme, but their weaknesses can be exploited in particular ways in this particular schematic setup. So that's not to say that Seattle will continue to have this problem in the future, but they did notice that because Byron Maxwell and because Thurl Simon are not particularly fluid players, these kinds of short passes would be successful. I mean, yeah, Tom Brady is a good quarterback, but how much do you credit him for throwing to an open receiver when the cornerback fell down?
Yeah, how much credit does he deserve for the offense as a unit figuring out that, hey, there's 1 or 2 guys on defense that we can beat by a step, so let's exploit that matchup.
Yeah, and so I think an average quarterback has a very similar looking performance. I think, which is not to say that Tom Brady's an average quarterback, obviously, but I think people are overstating you have a game plan and then you have to execute the game plan, and he executed it masterfully. I mean, no, he did not. If he executed it masterfully, they wouldn't have needed a freak interception at the end to win. If he executed it masterfully, they would have way more points than 28. He did all right, and his receivers did really well. It's like people don't want to credit the receivers because they're known to be a bad receiving corps, but they all did really well.
Well, it takes away from the narrative of Tom Brady being, football Jesus.
Yeah, can't do that.
God forbid. God forbid.
Anyway, that was an exciting game. So let's talk about that thing. So what's your take on the Seahawks throwing it?
Well, before we, I assume you mean the on the last play,
right.
But before we get to that, I just want
abstractly, I'm against them throwing it ever. So,
well, I just want to take a moment to highlight how stupidly efficient Russell Wilson was throwing the ball in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, he's extraordinarily efficient. Great job.
I mean, it was a weird thing to watch. I mean, you all through the first half, you would see Russell Wilson with what appeared to be 25 minutes in the pocket.
Right.
On play after play after play. And just, it would be fun to see the all 22 footage, because I am just curious how one man can have that long to throw, multiple balls and no one can get clear downfield.
Yeah, no, it was interesting because because the broadcasters could see it because they were there. They're not just working off broadcast footage. The broadcasters could see it and they were just like, man, there is no one open. And then there's people I trust, people like Matt Miller, who were at the game watching from the press box, and they also found that these dudes are not getting open. It's been 5 seconds and they're not open, which is part of the reason that Chris Matthews from Hardball came into the game at all. And then he got pseudo open, right? He got tall, basically. So he's like 6'5", and Kyle Arrington is 5'11". So they started throwing to him a lot, which is great. And then they switched covers, and then they put Arrington on Baldwin, and then they put Browner on not Baldwin. They put Arrington on like Curson and whoever else is the third receiver. Then they put Baldwin on Matthews, and then Matthews was never open again because Browner's 6'2", and he's also really long, and then he also beat up Matthews at the line of scrimmage, almost like literally. And yeah, it's just like the fact that one can be efficient in this context, given what seemed to be an abysmal quality of receiver, certainly a matchup issue against Terrell Rivas, Brandon Branner, Logan Ryan, Kyle Arrington, etc. Devin McCourty, certainly a mismatch, right? The fact that Wilson was able to do as much as he did, I think, is definitely a credit to him.
Quant Coach writes in the latest post on his blog at quantcoach.com, the Seahawks were both infinitely productive, and by that he means they averaged more than 10 yards per pass attempt, or
Right.
one first down per pass, and +1 in the turnover battle. That is almost always a winning recipe. Indeed, during the 2014 regular season, NFL teams that were both infinitely productive and at least +1 turnover were 46-2. And in both defeats, the losers' kicking game imploded. In week 2, Cleveland kicker Billy Cundiff missed 2 field goals in a 21-17 loss to Baltimore. And in week 16, Miami blocked a Minnesota punt for a safety with 41 seconds to play to pin a 37-35 loss on the Vikings. In contrast, Seattle suffered no such special teams calamity,
despite the special teams issues from 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, they managed to tighten up their special teams scheme. Did anything noteworthy happen on special teams?
The Patriots return more punts than you'd expect against the Seahawks because the Seahawks, their special teams are good at one thing, and that's to prevent punts from being returned. That didn't really happen in this game, but nothing like actually noteworthy.
Well, and that was the thing that I wanted to highlight about the Seattle offense was that they found a way under, I guess, just like really stifling coverage in the backfield to put up significant offense to make it a game. In fact, to almost win the game. They took advantage of the turnovers. It was a very Seattle game up until the very end.
Yeah, no, I thought there were like really remarkable plays from Seattle until the very end.
Quant Coach's conclusion is really depressing. He claims that Bill Belichick knew what was going to happen, and all he had to do was line Malcolm Butler up where he was, and then Butler would see the ball and intercept it. And Quant Coach basically claims that Bill Belichick can see the future. In
this case, actually, there's a reason to think that. Not that Bill Belichick knew that play was coming, but that Bill Belichick knew that this play was in their goal line package, and this is what it looks like, because they practiced that specific route combination and play, and Malcolm Butler actually did not make the play in practice against that very same look. If you take a look at the video, Deadspin tweeted out the video, but it's all over. It's all over Twitter now. If you take a look at the video from a different angle, you can actually see both Ricardo Lockett's footwork and Malcolm Butler's footwork, and he breaks on the slant faster than Lockett does. And in fact, their feet plant at the same time, but because Malcolm Butler was working flat-footed and Ricardo Lockett was finishing a shuffle step, Butler generated more power off of his plant step to the ball, again faster than Lockett did, at the exact same time, and that's part of the reason he was able to become a magnet basically to the ball. There's a couple of other things. I actually talked to 3 different coaches who direct messaged me. 2 of them are high school coaches. One's a college coach. And we talked about this play. We talked about a couple of things. The first is that 2 of them definitively agreed with my analysis that the pass was not a bad idea. The third argued it's not a question of whether or not you pass or run. It's a question of Seattle did not have a 3-play plan for this situation, and therefore they were wrong no matter what they did, which is a pretty smart take. He's a high school football coach. He said that so in this situation, what their kids do, and they practice it like every other week, what their kids do is that they run an outside zone to the strong side, wherever that strong side might be. It's usually determined by the hash marks. And then immediately they run a quarterback sneak, and the outside zone sets up the quarterback sneak because the key to that quarterback sneak is that you're running a play immediately. You're running a play within 6 seconds of running the previous play, which means the defense is going to be out of position, which means that they can't clog the A gaps, which is really important for a quarterback sneak. Because I asked about that. I was like, well, do you check out of anything? And he's like, no. Installing that offense with checks means taking time. And the only point of this offense is to not take time. So he's a quarterback sneak after that. And then the third play can either be a play action. It doesn't have to be we don't. Includes a tight end leak to the left and a smash concept to the right. And so he's talking about using a 3-play plan. One sets up another play specifically. And so that's all good. But the idea that passing is the right situation, I think coaches are much more prepared to say that actually makes sense. And I'll talk about why in a second. But specifically, the issue with that specific play is not that you're throwing it over the middle. A lot of people are talking about how that was a bad specific play to call because you're calling a slant against the middle of the defense. That implies that there are defenders there. There were not. You had 6 players rushing. You had 3 cornerbacks dropping off into man coverage, which is exactly what you tried to run a pick against. And then you have a linebacker who is in a soft zone on the other side of the field, on the strong side of the formation, away from your receivers. You don't have anyone there except the 2 corners that you're playing against. So, in fact, you're not throwing a slant over the middle of the defense. You're throwing the ball, and you're throwing it quickly on a 1-step drop. And so the problem there is not where the pass is or what the pass is or even the play design. The problem is twofold, and it's with the wide receiver techniques of both Jermaine Kearse and Ricardo Lockett. And, we were talking about this, and I mentioned receiver base, and this is, I think, an important part. It's that Kearse, who is typically a bad blocker, in this case couldn't get off of the block from Brandon Browner, who dominated him at the line of scrimmage, right? It's not offensive pass interference. Some people talk about that. It's not because Brandon Browner not only initiated contact, but even if he didn't initiate contact, he powered through contact. He prevented Kearse from cutting off Malcolm Butler it's basically just a double slant. I forgot the name of the route for that, the route concept for that. But he was supposed to cut off Malcolm Butler to keep Ricardo Lockett clean, at least for half a second. And if that play happens a tenth of a second later, that it's a touchdown. Or if Butler arrives 10th of a second later, it's a touchdown. So that was the idea. So Kearse couldn't get anything done for 2 reasons. First is that he didn't establish a strong base of footwork to work from. The second is because he wasn't using his hands to get off of Brandon Browner, who not only won the battle by getting his hands on Kearse first, but second, Kearse was calling for a holding penalty. You can see his hand fly up and he's calling for a penalty instead of trying to get off the block. And so that's problem 1. Problem 2 is that Ricardo Lockett's shuffle step doesn't keep his feet on the ground, which means that he's constantly playing with a weaker base as he plants and moves off because he doesn't keep his feet on the ground. And then as he's moving towards the ball and he's attacking the ball, he doesn't try to keep his feet on the ground, and he jumps a little bit. And when you're in the air, you don't have any leverage, right? Malcolm Butler barreled him. I mean, they're like kind of the same weight, and they're kind of going the same speed, but there was one winner, and that was the winner who had leverage. And so those are the 2 things that that we talked about in terms of the plays. It's not like the play design was bad. It was not bad. In fact, the Seahawks got the look they wanted and threw against the look they wanted to an open receiver. It's how the receivers played that, and it's part of the reason that receiver mismatches against secondary mismatches are such a big problem.
Just going back to pick out one thing that you mentioned in context of your conversation with this high school coach, you mentioned how important it is, at least to this coach, to have a 3-play plan, and that the Seahawks kind of screwed themselves by apparently not having a 3-play plan. I would argue that a pass play like this one is a necessary part of a 2-play plan, and I think that every team needs a 2-play plan for this situation. Once you find yourself on 2nd and 1, that close to the goal line, then you can either run or you can pass. You can try to run. Marshawn Lynch had very little success at the goal line.
Well, okay. So there's two things. Marshawn Lynch this year ran it 5 times from the 1. I don't think he ran it in the game from the 1. 5 times this year he ran it from the 1. 2 were for a loss. 1 was for a gain. 2 were for no gain. So he's actually 1 for 5 from the goal line this year. In this game, in 3rd and short situations, he's 1 for 3.
At any rate, he had been having a rough season and a rough game. There was no reason to believe that Marshawn Lynch is a guarantee walking into the end zone.
Right.
And you can't discount the amount of time that will come off the clock if he runs the ball, especially since Belichick didn't call a timeout on the previous play when there was more time left on the clock with like 1 minute left or whatever.
103, yeah.
You get the impression that means that Belichick thinks that he can hold. He's not concerned about managing the clock.
If you begin with the assumption that Belichick is a rational actor when he doesn't call the timeout, yes.
Yeah, if you think that he did that on purpose, then you can reasonably infer that he is just going to defend his way to a Super Bowl win.
Right.
And if you assume that he was a rational actor at 1 minute and 3 seconds, then he is also a rational actor by not calling a timeout after you run the ball with Marshawn Lynch on 2nd down. So you have to do it, which will probably eat up a little bit more time. And then you are basically in the same spot. You're at 3rd and 1, or 3rd and a half, or 3rd and whatever Marshawn Lynch doesn't get you. And then you can either run or pass again, depending on how much time is left on the clock. Seattle had 1 timeout left, I think. So
yes,
if they
6 seconds, 1 timeout left.
So run pass is really, really unlikely. There's just that just isn't going to happen. So if they run the ball on 2nd down, they pretty much have to pass on 3rd down. But if you pass on 2nd down, then if you don't get the touchdown, unless
there's a turnover somehow,
picked off, then you get a second bite at the apple where you can either run or pass. And then, depending on what you do on 3rd down, even your 4th down play can be a wild card. So you don't even know what you're necessarily going to do on 4th down. You only need to know what you're going to do on 2nd and 3rd down.
Yeah.
And unless you are certain beyond all mathematical doubt that you are going to get that touchdown on 3rd down, then you should probably pass it on 2nd down in order to preserve what little bit of clock you have left.
Yeah. I think this is all correct. I think that's a really smart way of looking at it. And so I've talked about this before. So I took an average of running plays with no timeouts left in the final minute of a game when a team is down. Right. So I looked at all of those plays where there's less than a minute left, a team was down by one score, and they ran the ball. And so I think it's reasonably assumed that every team in that situation where they're within 1 score and run the ball, they're usually at the goal line. But the point is, in every one of those situations are in kind of a hurry-up mode. In only one of those situations was that play under 6 seconds, and that person was able to run out of bounds, which is not something I think you can reasonably infer what happened here. So in situations where there was no timeout called, the average amount of time that took was 21 seconds. The average amount of time it takes to run the ball with a timeout is 6 seconds. You only have 2 plays then. And so you have to pass the ball in order to get 2 runs in. So you can So in order to get 2 additional plays in, and so everybody who says that running is superior to passing was only talking about the individual play and not about maximizing your probability of winning the downs. Only about maximizing the probability of winning the play. And I think that that's 2 different ways of looking at it. And I think the second way to look at it is wrong, because each individual play does not occur in a vacuum of context from the other plays. And so you have to try to win your next 3 plays. That's your job. You have 3 plays to win. If you reduce yourself to 2 plays, you're just not getting it done, right? And so you're not maximizing your opportunity to win. And so so if running is so much better than passing still allows you to run it twice. And the turnover rate on runs is not that different than the turnover rate on passes. I mean, people are like, you could throw an interception. You can also fumble the ball. Marshawn Lynch is not unique in that he doesn't ever fumble the ball. He does fumble the ball, and he fumbles it at a rate higher than Russell Wilson throws interceptions.
And so, well, and let's just stop for a second and, indicate here, and you actually broke this down pretty exhaustively in an article on Vikings territory, that the probability of either a running back fumble or a quarterback throwing a pick is somewhere in the neighborhood of 1 to 1.5% on this given play.
Yeah, it's less than 1.5%.
Real small numbers.
Yeah, no, I think that, and Pete Carroll even said it, you're not planning these plays as if you're going to have a turnover, right? I'm not considering throwing the ball assuming Russell Wilson is going to throw a turnover. And that's not a great phrasing of it, but the point is that turnovers are important, obviously, in this game, because you lose as soon as you commit a turnover in that situation. But the consideration of those plays should not be a turnover because they're vanishingly small probabilities. And so in this case, maximizing the number of plays that you have maximizes the success of all of your ability to get into the end zone. So anybody who's I don't care if you have Peyton Manning and Thomas and 38-year-old Thomas Jones back there, right? You run the ball. And it's really? Because I've been in goal line situations before. I've watched teams play from the 1-yard line, and it turns out you can actually, pass the ball into the end zone. If you have a bad running back, you're not going to get it that many more times. And in fact, there are situations where you can convert at a higher rate of passing, but that's not the issue. The issue isn't whether or not passing or running at the goal line is superior. The issue is whether or not you can maximize your chance of getting into the end zone over the course of 3 plays, not over the course of an individual play. And in this case, because of the time element, passing gets you one more bite at the apple.
Well, yeah, and it's not even how many attempts you can get to get into the end zone in one set of downs. Because even if you convert that 2nd and 1 but don't score the touchdown, you still only got 2 plays left because the clock is your enemy as well. You can't just rely on a fresh set of downs. This game would look a lot different if that, play set had happened with, a minute left or even, 45 seconds left as opposed to the 20 that were on the clock. Right.
And so that's the next question. So is Pete Carroll dumb for not running it with 33 or 34, 35 seconds left and instead waiting for the clock to drain? And I think that he would have maximized his opportunity from running it from 35. But I think that 0 people should begrudge him for that. You know what I mean? Whose thought, as the clock is running down and Bill Belichick's not calling a timeout, whose thought is, I better get a playoff pretty quickly? You think you've got a 90% chance. And that's because teams have a poor understanding of probability, and people do as well. But people generally think, I've got a 90% chance of scoring on either one of these plays. There's no way I'm going to give Tom Brady extra time to drive for a field goal. He doesn't have to drive for a touchdown. He has to drive for a field goal.
He doesn't have to get that far. All he has to do is, have one series real quick, like every other freaking series he's had that whole game where he gets to midfield and then
Gostkowski. And he has Stephen Gostkowski, who is not a shabby kicker. Yeah. And so no one is thinking, you should have preserved time on the clock. 0 people are thinking this, right? And so it turns out in hindsight, wow, it actually would have been better to get a playoff 7 or 8 seconds sooner. So you could maybe run it 3 times, right? If that's your proclivity. But like, which, by the way, at that point, that means you've run it 4 times in a row, and I don't know if that's maximizing either, right? Like at some point, I think that running it 3 times in a row decreases your probability of being successful on the 4th run. You know what I mean?
Well, because there has to be like an element of rope-a-dope in your play calling,
Yeah,
right?
you have
Like
to punish
we
teams for
have to
cheating.
do what they won't expect, and if we run it 4 times in a row, then that kind of.
And then when you consider sort of the matchup, so in 11 personnel against a goal line front, it's a 5-3-3 front. So they have 3 defensive backs, 5 defensive linemen, 3 linebackers. Passing is always the situation there. That doesn't mean you go out in 11 front, but if you can go out in 11 personnel and the other team does not adjust, I think, yeah, of course you pass. And I think that you actually go out in 11 personnel too. I think that you actually go out with 3 receivers on the field. If you know the other team is only going to have 3 cornerbacks and no safeties. Like if you know there's only going to be 3 defensive backs and you put 3 receivers out on the field, I don't care what situation you're in. You're happy. You put 3 receivers on the field if you know that's what the response is going to be. And then in that situation, when you have that situation, of course you're going to pass.
Oh, if I'm playing Madden, I audible a crossing route and hopefully score a touchdown.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. So yeah, I think from that perspective, it kind of makes a lot of sense. I probably would have never put 11 personnel out there. I wouldn't have even thought about it. I would probably put 22 personnel out there, put 2 running backs, 2 tight ends, and 1 receiver out there. Split the receiver out wide. Probably do a play action rollout. I think that's a different kind of question. What play design would be best? And I thought about it. That's like not even the best play design because you have to worry about time on the clock, and play action rollouts take a little bit of time.
Seattle had a lot of success with the rollout thus far, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Right. Probably the best example of a play would be a run pass option when you're spread out, and so like. So you come out in a spread or a pseudo spread set. So you come out in 11 personnel with 3 receivers, 1 tight end, 1 running back. Split your tight ends and receivers out wide, cover the entire field, see what they do. And if they choose to stay in 5-3-3 personnel, then you've probably won the game because then you throw a screen pass and just hope your receiver beats their worst cornerback, right? Or your tight end, because I probably trust Zach Miller, who hadn't had a target all game. I understand that, but I probably trust Zach Miller against Akeem Ayers for 1 yard, right, to get 1 yard.
You're sure you're not only saying that because Malcolm Butler picked it off?
No, I don't know, right? Because I think that play was well designed, right? I think that play was well designed. I think the optimal play, now that I'm thinking about it, is you spread out the defense, and if the defense takes 5 people puts 5 people in the box, you run it. And if they don't, you throw a screen pass. That's my idea. That's my thinking. And the run pass option includes a play action in it, but it's not a long play action. It's not a 7-step play action. It's a 1-step play action that allows you to throw instantly. And so that's the thought. I think that's probably the optimal play design. I don't know. But, they designed a goal line package for a reason. The goal line package has been reasonably successful this year. They installed it again this week. If you have a goal line package, why not use it? Marshawn Lynch is not much more successful. In fact, he's average in goal line situations and in third and short situations with the Seahawks offensive line. So, I would say it's not like running it was obvious, and definitely running it 4 times in a row is not obvious.
Running it on 2nd down would have been a mistake.
Yeah, because then Belichick knows to expect the pass on 3rd down.
Yeah, and then they just eat your lunch anyway or swat it down, and the Super Bowl ends in a equally depressing but maybe less shocking sort of way.
Right. So does this make Tom Brady the greatest quarterback who's ever played the game?
Yes. Unequivocally.
Done. Well, that's the end of that discussion.
Tom Brady's interception at the end of the Super Bowl was possibly the greatest play. Only a team with Tom Brady as its quarterback
Would have had that interception.
would have had the heart, would have had the
grit.
fury, would have had the grit,
Hard-headedness.
the go out there and play angriness. Only someone on Tom Brady's team.
Yeah, I'm just really glad that Malcolm Butler caught that interception for the team and not for himself.
I think he just caught it because it was there. It wasn't even a glory boy choice. It was just he was programmed and he saw the ball moving in it. You saw immediately that he saw the ball moving in a different line than the receiver, and he went there. He just went there.
Thank God for Tom Brady.
I know, God, he's just so great. I did love the vine of his reaction when his legacy was saved by a rookie. 'Cause that's what happened, right? I would not have bothered with my sports embargo had New England lost. And then it would be, I'm sure Skip Bayless would be all, oh, they've never recovered from Spygate. Tom Brady is only 500 in Super Bowls. He can get there, but can he win? And then the argument between whether he or Peyton Manning was a better quarterback could go on for another year in a slightly different form and blah, blah. But now we don't get any of that, I don't think.
Boo.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the thing about the Patriots not winning the Super Bowl since Spygate, at least I am glad that is over, but that is a small consolation to the Patriots actually winning, right? Because I would prefer they not win and someone think, this is the football gods punishing you, than have someone who cares about the football gods be wrong, which again is a great thrill of mine, but I still would not do that at the expense of the Patriots winning the Super Bowl.
It's a funny thing how people that, and yeah, maybe it's just human nature, it must be, but people that work with numbers in such detailed ways and, kind of use them to describe so many things that are otherwise opaque to humanity, baseball enthusiast players, gamblers, football analysts, probably to a lesser extent accountants, but I don't really know what a good analogy for double entry bookkeeping would be here. If only Skylar White had been in an H&R Block commercial. That, at any rate, one of the things I've noticed about people that work a lot with numbers is that they're so superstitious. Like, despite being so relentlessly analytical, there's always this professed and actually genuinely deeply held belief in Gambler, the god of gambling, or the football gods, in some sort of,
I mean, there's always this sense of a karmic justice or a universe righting itself sort of thing.
Oftentimes there specifically is no sense of justice behind it.
Right, exactly. No, I agree. No, I think, because a lot of people will either defer to karmic justice or they'll defer to some sort of superstition, right? Or they'll defer to if you did it the right way.
Right? Process, not results.
Well, but they mean morally right way.
If you play the game the right way, not rely on DVOA as opposed to Super Bowl wins.
Right.
Yeah. Although if you do both of those things, well, then it just comes down to whether or not you're piping crowd noise into your stadium.
Yeah. That's why the Falcons lost.
The Falcons were going to lose no matter what.
No, I mean, they didn't start piping, sound into the stadium until 2013. That's when the Falcons started sucking.
But did they do it week 1, 2013? Did they start out the season doing that, or was it a thing that...
Yeah, I assume they did.
Well, okay then. Good enough for me.
I'm just saying, 2011, 2012, even 2010, Falcons were great. They beat the Seahawks in the playoffs, and then suddenly they start piping sound into their stadium, and then they start losing. Can't tell me that's not related.
Maybe we're losing because their fans aren't dedicated enough. Maybe if the Atlanta Falcons fans were on Peter Pan's pirate ship or whatever, on Captain Hook's pirate ship, then Tinkerbell would have died because nobody would have been there to clap.
There's another karmic justice. The fans didn't care enough, so they lost.
Oh, man. Oh, the owners want us all to believe that.
Yeah, they do, don't they? Well, teams are just extensions of their fans, right?
Well, if by clap your hands you mean buy a jersey, then yes, please clap all your hands. Oh, goodness. Unfortunately, we did not make enough money to buy personalized jerseys. Does NFL.com take Your Majesties?
I don't think they do.
Or excuse me, I've been pronouncing them Your Majesties, which I think is much funnier.
Yeah, I think Drew Majesties is better.
I'm not the original coiner of that mispronounced phrase, right? I feel like I should maybe describe the origin of the Your Majesty. It occurs to me that this is a podcast, but not everybody maybe is familiar with podcasting lore as I am, or Cousin Sal, I guess. I don't know. I didn't even know he was on Jimmy Kimmel. How lame does that make me?
I guess about as lame as me.
Ha! So Your Majesty is Jermaine Jackson's son's name.
Oh, wait, what?
Yes.
Oh.
That is where the term comes from. Cousin Sal Iacono thought that was the funniest thing he had ever read. And so whenever he talks about Cousin Sal's prop bets, he's a sports betting enthusiast, hangs out a lot with Boston douchebag Bill Simmons.
Right.
He always refers to his season of betting in terms of Your Majesties as opposed to dollars. The news girl for the Adam Carolla podcast, Allison something or another. This was a couple of news girls ago. She's a stand-up comedian in California experiencing enough success to where she no longer has to be the news girl on the Adam Carolla podcast. But she was reading a Cousin Sal gambling story for the news that week. I forget what it was. And having never seen the word Your Majesty before and not knowing about Jermaine Jackson's son and his hilarious name, she pronounced it Your Majesty. Which everybody, including me, thought was hilarious. And so that is where the turn of phrase Your Majesty came to stand in for a dollar. Luckily, no actual dollars were harmed in the placing of these bets. I only kept track of them for entertainment purposes, although I did make a broad series of bets and then some very terrible hedges at halftime. And I managed to only lose about 30% of my outlined bankroll for the Super Bowl. So a negative 30% ROI is still better than Norse Code did.
Oh, man.
And, I mentioned this in the beginning of the show. Really, we did fine in a lot of the props. The narrative we constructed for the game was wrong. And having invested ourselves heavily in that narrative, we did not do so well.
That's a pretty dangerous thing to do, just in general for gamblers.
Oh, placing a bunch of bets based on a narrative that will, either happen or not happen very quickly.
Right, exactly. Instead of, what gamblers should do, which is play the odds. I mean, we started with the assumption that the Seahawks were going to win and then work backwards from there.
Basically, yes. The Seahawks are going to win a close, low-scoring game, which they did not do. So we lost 10 Your Majesties on Seattle to win, and then another 10 on the total points being 47.5. We managed to get all the way to the fourth quarter, though, so we had that going for us. Unfortunately, we also had Seattle as the first team to score a touchdown, with Marshawn Lynch as the first player to score a touchdown, and also as Super Bowl MVP. None of those bets came through.
Yes. I mean, I think we still were right about the odds, though. Because if Marshawn Lynch runs that in, right? Or it doesn't even have to be. If that's a touchdown, if Russell Wilson throws a touchdown pass to Ricardo Lockett, Marshawn Lynch still probably gets the MVP, right?
It's not. It wouldn't have been Richard Sherman, which admittedly he was more than a 5% to win,
right?
And before the game started, but he was, other than just keeping people from being open downfield, he was a non-factor in the game mostly. So
well, he was a non-factor from the broadcast, even though he clearly affected the game plan on further analysis and how the Patriots played. He's not a factor in a way that would garner MVP votes.
No. And the thing we said about Tom Brady proved to be true. All Tom Brady had to do was just be in the game and have the Patriots win, and he was guaranteed MVP. So Gronk as Super Bowl MVP was a loser as well. However, Marshawn Lynch did have over 92.5 yards rushing. I think he had 106 or something. So we had a small win there.
Mm-hmm.
Robert Kraft was shown much more during the game than Paul Allen. As the dramatic final moments of the game ensued, they showed Robert Kraft like 5 times in a row, sealing that one before the game even ended. Actually, Katy Perry was mentioned once before halftime. We had taken the over on 2, so we lost that one.
Really? Wow, that's a surprise.
However, we were smart to take even odds on the number of mentions of deflate or deflated balls during the game.
No, I thought he said it twice as the game was ending.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I mean, if you've got an official count from a bookie, then that's what counts. But that he did say it twice over the course of the game.
Swear to God, that was after the whistle.
Okay.
At any rate, it's a win. We were wrong about Katy Perry's hair. It was black.
Boring.
Yeah, lame. However, we were right about Roar. Will Marshawn Lynch grab his crotch during the game? We won $1.50.
Easy no.
On that one. I loved the gold bottom cleats though.
Yeah, I was gonna find some way to stick it in their eyes.
Oh, that was and that was exactly the sort of thing we were talking about in the pregame show. Like he's gonna find a way to do something. He's not gonna break any of the rules that the NFL has proscribed for him, but he'll find a way to stick a thumb in their eye.
Yeah.
Somehow. We peeled on Pete Carroll being mentioned as the last head coach of the Patriots.
Easy.
5 Drew Majesties on that one.
Easy.
And also the Bill Belichick smiling on camera during the game, taking no at -170, netted us almost 6 Drew Majesties.
Also easy.
We lost on the national anthem bet. We talked about that one already. And we lost on our second cross sports bet. The
right, because it's with the Seahawks win, right? Yeah.
Teaser, yeah. Silva won, Seahawks didn't. If you had Silva and the Pats to win, then you made $12.50 Drew Majesties, or 12.5 Drew Majesties for every 10 you wagered. We hit on our LeGarrette Blount rushing attempts or number of minutes in Silva versus Diaz. That makes me feel a little better. I enjoy that.
That was definitely not easy, but it was nice. It was not as easy as Pete Carroll being mentioned as the last coach of the Patriots.
That's true. We did hit almost all of the free money bets, although none of them offered. Actually, really the only, I think the over under on Deflategate was the only actual like super free money bet because you got even odds on that one. All the other ones were pretty significantly minus.
Because it was -200, right? That Carroll will be mentioned as the previous head coach of the Patriots, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's still really good odds. I mean, that's still basically free money too, right? You put 10 on it, you get 5. I mean, that's great.
That's true. And the Belichick smile, I mean, that's just
that's really good odds. And was it -170?
Yeah, it was -170. It was better odds than some of that hoodie bull crap.
Okay. Yeah, see, it's better odds than I thought. I just don't think that one's as obvious, even though like he never smiles. Because like you can just kind of have to rely on the random quirk of the camera. And like human interaction and stuff like that. But I thought that was pretty good money too. Not as good as -200 Carroll mentioned as the previous head coach of the Patriots, but still really good. So if we had done the proportional betting based on our confidence in these things, we probably would have come out ahead.
Yeah, if I had properly bankrolled this instead of just throwing an equivalent bet on
everything,
each one, then we probably would have done better. Final result was -79.69 Drew Majesties on 210 Drew Majesties wagered.
Yeah, that's terrible.
Yeah, for a net ROI of about -65%.
That's awful.
Is really not good. It's enough to drive a man to drink.
If you had enough money to drink.
If you had any money after that, yeah.
Good
exactly. Lord. Get yourself a handle of Johnson's vodka and some Kool-Aid mix. Because that's about all you've got left.
Yeah.
After that, drubbing. I enjoyed how Robert Kraft in post-game interview, one of the first things on his chest and on his mind that he wanted to get out was, and I quote, "Our people did not touch the balls."
Yeah, well, he was a little drunk.
I was too, to be fair.
I mean, you weren't interviewed on like national television or the biggest audience that TV could ever possibly provide, but yeah.
And nobody, was accusing my organization of touching the balls.
Really? Because that's a pretty good It's a pretty good bet, right? If I just accused you of that.
Well, as long as I said, hey, our people did not touch the balls, that would probably still remain true.
It was weird because, speaking of Robert Kraft, so he comes out and he's like, no, this win is really meaningful because we didn't touch the balls, which one can argue about the meaning of that. In the post game speech where they give it to the owner because the owner is the team, obviously, he won, right? So they give the microphone to him. The post game speech compared being accused of cheating after some evidence that you were probably cheating to the nation suffering from 9/11. That happened too. So yeah, Kraft was a little drunk.
or Rudy Giuliani might have just been hanging out in the press box. and
just for fun.
He was just hanging out, comparing everything to 9/11 like he always does. And maybe Robert Kraft was just like, hey, let's run with it. Oh, actually, you know what? I mean, this is awfully forward thinking for an old and somewhat drunk billionaire. But what if that was a swipe at Pete Carroll?
No, that's too clever. No, he's definitely just a self-serving.
It's probably just old white guy,
everything
bad that happens to me is the worst thing that's happened to America.
Yeah.
But that would be hilarious if it was actually like a swipe at Pete Carroll's
extraordinary
trutherism. That would make Robert Kraft maybe even worthy of being a billionaire. I would give that man $1 billion if he was that clever.
Yeah, but he's clearly not, because he was just like the fact that the nation won the Super Bowl in 2001, which fuck off. But the fact that the nation won in 2001 or 2002 rather. After 9/11, America won, and I thought there was no feeling more special than when the Patriots won the Super Bowl after 9/11. I thought there would be no more special feeling than a time when America came together and functionally he was like, and America came together and rooted for the Patriots, which I think people should remember that actually did happen. People loved the Patriots in 2001 because they were like double-digit underdogs. They were playing with their backup quarterback, the sixth rounder, this awkward-looking Tom Brady kid. They got destroyed in the first game of the season because they blitzed 35 times. They were up against this dominant Rams team that had just recently set the scoring record, later to be broken by the Patriots. Right? And so everyone did actually love the Patriots, right? So that's not weird, but it's still weird to mention after you're the national football pariah. After the nation won in 2001, I thought there'd be no more special Super Bowl than this one. But I was wrong. This one's more special. We won, America. Like, what?
Who's we? In that sentence.
It's Patriot Nation, which, if you're not a traitor, is everybody.
There'll be no ululating in Pat's Nation tonight. So, Super Bowl. Yay. Super Bowl X-Licks can suck it, as far as I'm concerned. No, that's not true. It was a really fun game to watch, and I only hope that next year's Super Bowl is as much fun, because there's nothing worse than a blowout Super Bowl.
Right, exactly. As you, a Broncos fan, well knows.
True. Well, the only thing worse than a blowout Super Bowl is a blowout Super Bowl when your team, who was favored to win, is blown out.
Yeah.
That's no fun. What is fun, though, is Norse Code. We try to lighten your week every week a little bit, bring you a chuckle along with some of the best football analysis in podcast form, and by far the best football analysis in podcast form to be found about your Minnesota Vikings, which is why we remain the #1 podcast for your Minnesota Vikings in a metric that I invented and have not used to actually measure anything.
Well, it's proprietary and you don't want to give it away before some person buys it and gives you a lot of money. I understand.
At any rate, Norse Code is powered by you, the listener. entirely. Well, I mean, we're the ones that talk into the microphones, but we wouldn't be doing this. Well, actually, we'd probably still be doing this, but we wouldn't have anywhere to put it, and we'd probably be running a lot more ads and have lower quality episodes were it not for the support of you, the Norse Code powering listener. So if you would like to see the Wall of Fame, the list of everyone in order in our closed envelope ranking that has ever donated to Norse Code, you can do so by going to norsecodepodcast.com, clicking on the little hamburger menu up in the top left corner, which is actually the technical term for that little like 3 fat line menu.
Oh, okay. So learn something new every day.
Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, click on there. You'll find the Norse Code Wall of Fame that has our closed envelope ranking of donors, and you can add your name to that list by scrolling to the bottom of the Norse Code Podcast website. Click on the little PayPal donate button and sending us $5. We don't ask much. We just would like $5 from you, the listener, one time to say thank you and to help us keep the lights on so that we can continue bringing you an off-season of Norse Code goodness that will be chock full of free agency and draft predictions that will be hopefully less than 50% wrong.
Strive for adequacy.
Yeah, no, adequacy. Let's aim for that. I was gonna make some sort of bullshit P into excellence, but let's walk before we can run, I guess. So in search of ever greater adequacy, as the season starts, we want to be able to do things like have our own little corporate subscription to NFL Game Rewind, so we can actually see the all-22 footage of every game from the season, unlike the Super Bowl, and be able to bring you more detailed analysis of personnel and packages and individual plays and trends and all the kind of stuff that you have grown to know and love at Norse Code. So thanks to everyone who has donated in the past and to all who will donate in the future. And before we leave you this episode, a couple things happened. The Pepsi Rookie of the Year. This is kind of old news. Pepsi Rookie of the Year was announced, but this is relatively new news. The MVP was announced, and turns out it's Aaron Rodgers. Sorry, Tom Brady.
You mean sorry, JJ Watt?
I'm real. Well, yeah, actually, no. Sorry, JJ Watt. But I mean, we saw this coming, right?
Yeah, and I mean we've gone over this, so no need to go over it again. If you don't give the award to the best player in football, the award is meaningless because we already have an all-pro recognition for quarterbacks. Let's move on.
Well, apparently none of that is true because Aaron Rodgers is the MVP. And I mean, he's a douchebag and an insurance salesman, but he's a pretty good quarterback for a douchebag. No lie. So.
Well, that's true.
I guess if that's the rubric, then he deserves to win. But anyway, the Rookie of the Year thing is much more interesting because it is voted on by fans, I believe, in an entirely unscientific
awards. There's the Pepsi Rookie of the Year award voted on by fans, and then the Associated Press Rookie of the Year award voted on by members of the Associated Press.
The Pepsi Rookie of the Year award is an unscientific poll whose results were leaked early, and the winner this year was Teddy Bridgewater.
Yeah, evidently with some margin of victory. Yeah, I mean, I guess vote early, vote often.
Well, but like, you don't feel like this particular Pepsi Rookie of the Year might have earned his place by people voting late and voting often? I mean, I suspect there is some degree of recency bias
that would be a result of voting often, but voting late, right? Because Teddy turned it on the last 5 weeks. Odell Beckham had his time in the sun, although let's not pretend he wasn't dominant in every game he played in. His time in the sun sort of midway through the season. So yeah, I think that's probably vote late, vote often probably helped out. But yeah, I think I remember in the middle of the year when we were talking about postseason awards, and I was talking to Ethan, and I thought that Joel Bitonio should be Rookie of the Year, the Offensive Rookie of the Year, and he was like, "Well, you just want to be, counterintuitive, and you want to give it to somebody who doesn't get the ball. You just want to do it because a quote unquote smart football mind recognizes that it's not always the person who touches the ball." And yeah, that's partly true. I want to go out of my way to seem smart. That's just who I am as a person. But I also thought that Joel Bitonio was having the best season of the year out of any offensive rookie. I don't think there's any question that Odell Beckham Jr. had the best offensive. I don't really care. I mean, Joel Bitonio had a dominant season. He had a very good season. Zach Martin had a very, very good season. Teddy had a pretty good season. Odell Beckham had like a historic season. The last rookie to play this well was Randy Moss. So you can't not give it to Odell Beckham. But somehow the Vikings and Louisville faithful found a way.
Gosh, Sharif, the AP agreed with you.
Yeah, because I'm right.
The AP is right.
Well, that's another way to look at it. Yes, we were correct.
No, you were all right. Odell Beckham Jr. had a dominant rookie season. Well, a dominant season for anyone, but particularly for a rookie.
Yeah, you led the league in receiving yards per game, 109. That's even better than Josh Gordon's last year.
Which may end up being Josh Gordon's last year. News came out today that he will be suspended for at least a year, which means the eminently fair NFL disciplinary process simply has not decided what to do with him yet.
Yeah, it's the NFL disciplinary process.
If history is any indication, I suggest that he not take anything that anyone says on the phone to him too seriously.
Word is we're going to win this, so sit this one out. Oh, okay, gotcha.
Oh, sure. No, I promise. 3 games suspended. You'll do time served. I promise I will never die. Wait, what? What? Defensive Rookie of the Year goes to Aaron Donald, St. Louis Rams.
Yeah, right.
Who, I believe, made an appearance in our midseason awards.
I think we're making an argument between him and Khalil Mack, but I think as the season sort of wore on, it's more likely to be Aaron Donald. All things considered, I think our midseason awards did a pretty good job.
Yeah, we're getting better at this. The wildly irresponsible prognostications still have a little way to go.
Yeah, I mean, shocking, right?
Like we said at the end of last year, or at the end of the season, Justice Mosqueda is pretty good at him.
Yeah, maybe we should just punish him for not being wild enough.
I think he's punishing us by ruining every episode we try to have.
It's true.
Guest.
And never have him on again.
Whatever it is, it just never works out. Just too bad. A couple of random items of note. I guess we already made fun of the Falcons getting caught pumping crowd noise into the stadium. That's a non-story. There's an interesting poll on Vikings territory. What do you believe would be the number one free agency pickup for the Vikings this offseason?
Tell us what you think.
Yeah, and if you would like to know the correct answer, scoot on over to Vikings Journal, where, Arif, you have finished your rankings of the top 50 free agents?
55. Halfway through, I was like, this isn't good. I have to expand it to 5 more. So 55.
You go through numbers 5 through 1 this week on Vikings Journal. So if you want to play a fun little game, you can scoot on over to Vikings territory and vote in the poll, and then click on Vikings Journal, or I guess type in vikingsjournal.com because there probably isn't a link. But then you can see the right answer. So, and I'm not going to spoil it here because you probably do want people to actually click on the article.
Yeah, it's a cliffhanger.
Anything else you are working on that you would like to share with our listenership?
The free agency thing, that's like sort of the culmination of like a couple of weeks of work. So that's kind of all that was going on.
Weeks of work, and now you rest and recuperate until you start with the mock draft stuff, I guess.
Yeah, that stuff is. I mean, nobody reads mock drafts, right? So.
Well, then why are there so many?
I'm kidding. Everyone reads mock drafts.
Maybe nobody reads them, but everybody sure writes them.
Page View says everyone reads them.
Ooh.
A ton of people read them.
Well, then you can be sure that we will have our tickets punched for that hype train.
Well in advance.
Beyond that, Any further parting shots? Any pithy one-sentence takes on the end of the 2014/2015 season?
Pithy? Yeah. Vikings are tied for first seed in the NFC.
Ha!
All right.
Hey, that is pithy. If like a pomegranate. Seeds, pith? No.
No.
All right. Well, if that's an indicator of anything, that it's time to wrap this up. You can find Arif on Twitter at Arif Hassan NFL, me at Dusty O'Connell, our producer James at Big Mono, and the show itself at Norse Code DN, as well as on dailynorseman.com, the Norse Code Facebook page, facebook.com/Daily Norseman, and of course our website, norsecodepodcast.com. We'll figure out some stuff to talk about and then make another show when we do that. And in the interim, our formula is and shall remain that Christian Ponder sucks. We'll see you then.
Norse Code is the official podcast of the Daily Norseman SB Nation blog and is produced with cooperation from Pompous Jerk Productions. Pompous Jerk Productions. Attitude with attitude. The opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of their contributors and do not reflect official positions of the Minnesota Vikings, SB Nation, the Daily Norseman staff, or PJP. No information in this podcast should be construed as gambling advice. Please obey all local gaming laws.
Our formula is this. We go out, we hit people in the mouth.